The proposed tax reform bills have generated intense debate among Nigerians. The bills, which aim to increase revenue and stimulate economic growth, has been met with both support and condemnation. One of the key provisions of the bill is the increase in value-added tax from 7.5% to 10%. This increase is expected to lead to higher prices of goods and services, which will disproportionately affect local income households. Well, that's one argument. But the bill also proposes to exempt certain essential items like food, education, and healthcare from VAT. Another provision of the bill is the introduction of a 5% excise duty on telecommunication services, which is expected to lead to higher costs for consumers. But the revenue generated from this duty could be used to fund critical infrastructure projects and improve public services. The proposed reduction in corporate income tax rate from 30% to 25% is also said to be a welcome development for businesses in Nigeria, as this reduction will help reduce their tax burden and increase their competitiveness in the global market. To provide more insights into the proposed tax reform bills, we have joining us Ayodele Adewale. He's a public affairs analyst. We thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me
on the program. And the papers, once again, in fact, this week, I think almost every day has been an update on the controversy, after controversy on these tax reform bills. Now, the Senate says, in response to what was reported a day before Thursday, that it hasn't withdrawn the bills. It's still on course. Public hearings will hold. In fact, it's saying that we will not be intimidated over the tax reform bills. What do you make of this? Because it's at a critical stage now in the National Assembly. What do you make of the back and forth on this bill so far?
What I make of it is that people are more concerned, and a lot of people want to be part of the making of that law, so to speak, after it has gone through all the full-fledged of proceedings. And the concern of people it's also very important. And the National Assembly have also expanded its consultative period to allow more people discuss on it and all that. But the critical thing there is that the executive have said that a lot of items have been taken off so that people without strong means, are not within the dragnet and they can save money from them. The bill particularly is concentrated in generating more funds for the national economy, especially from the wealthy, the very wealthy people who sometimes the ratio of this taxation is likened to what the poor would pay. So they're taking more from the rich to take to the poor and develop our space.
Interesting stuff. So, but there are a whole lot of people who haven't read the bill, obviously, but so they rely on hearsays and form their opinion based on some of the jaundiced views of some other people who probably had read it or who hadn't even read it. And there are reports that there's some who shifted grounds after, shifted their position after, they now read it or had better understanding. Could this be lack of tact or due diligence on the side of those people, or, just inadequate communication from the side of the government or those pushing the bill?
Well, from the tax people who are pushing the narrative, they've done through their due diligence, and they've done what is right by pushing more information out there. And of course, they've gone to the National Assembly, where you have elected representatives from different constituencies to discuss with them and educate them. It behoves on those ones to go back to their constituency also and espouse it and discuss with their constituent without coming up with an informed mindset on behalf of the people, without consulting the people and getting a feedback from them and making it look holistic in terms of pinning it on nationality groupings or geopolitical space and say, oh, we're not for this. Because I normally will ask a question. When you say my people are not drift towards this, did you consult your people? Did you meet with them? Did you get their resolve on it? And it is also very good now because an average person in the society wants to know what is there. And thank God for social media and all of these things. So people are picking information. They are having informed mindset. Even people that are saying their geopolitical region does not incline with what has come have reversed on their positions.
Some of them.
And some of them. Yeah, some of them have reversed. At least we are watching what is happening. Yeah. Even young people, a lot of them are aligned to it. But I thank God for media platforms like yours that keep bringing up this discussion to get better understanding.
And of course, it's safe to say that there is one key issue of contention in these 4 bills, or you could even narrow it down to 2, since the other 2 are more like establishment bills, so to speak, and that's the issue on the derivation formula on the value-added tax. You are, yes, you speak to national issues and all of that, but, coming from where you are, one of the opponents to the bills may say you are speaking because you are from Lagos. Lagos has been argued that will be one of the largest beneficiaries of this new derivation formula. But help Nigerians understand, your own, position on this new derivation formula. People are saying Lagos, Rivers State will be the largest beneficiaries. Others are saying, why don't we retain the current formula where it's based on population of states rather than what the new bill is offering?
Well, yes, I'm from Lagos. Yes, I live in Lagos. I also have a bloodline to other areas like Delta, like Ondo, and some other places. Moving away from that, you must understand that these things drift. There was a time that the northern region were the most contributor, you understand, to national growth. We saw when the Grand Pyramids was there, the agricultural boom and all of that. Even the western region was built basically on agriculture, and all, until when we got into the oil era and all. But in all of this, what matters more is the development of people according to their strengths and peculiarities, and especially for you to develop education. In every geopolitical zone in Nigeria, they have the ability to surpass one another based on the endowment that is there. And the biggest endowment is human, right, on their population. So if you have a population that is well educated, that is well streamed, well organized, even if you have all of the oil in the world in the South, you can't compete with them. If you go to Silicon Valley, for instance, and all of that, the GDP there is far greater than what we have here in Nigeria. So it also means that a state like Lagos that have humongous population, like over 22 million people in Lagos, with all of the funds that seems to be coming to Lagos, it's not enough to take care of the infrastructure in Lagos when you compare it to the population, because you're going to have wear and tear on the road, you're going to have wear and tear on infrastructure, you're going to have security implications, you're going to have a lot of money that should go into health sector, transportation, and all of these things. Can you compare it to a state like, for instance, Delta? Even with all of the high funds allocation that they have, what is the population in Delta? You understand, that can justify the kind of funds that they have if you want to take it along that route. Or you take it to a state like Zamfara. You understand, you have a lot of deposit. But when you compare it with their population in terms of the infrastructure that you put there. But the question now is leadership, right? If you have good leadership that can manage these funds well, that can manage it to the extent that they develop the infrastructure, they develop the capacity of the people through education, and the educational endowment of the people also help to increase the opportunity within their geopolitical space, right? That we also bring in investment and investors there at the long run. So there'll be competition in terms of, creating wealth and opportunity. Then you also increase your gains.
So some are also worried for the federal government, like federal government planning to cede 5% of VAT to states, that it might reduce the revenue in the short term. So how do you think the federal government can balance, ceding this 5%, but not affecting its own revenue base? Because the federal government also needs money to execute most of the projects, especially looking at this current administration's Renewed Hope initiative.
The only thing that can create a a good balance is for all the structure of government to work effectively well. Because there's a lot of burden on the federal government as it is now. If any road goes bad in any state, in any local government, people look at the federal government. But you forget the fact that this local government also generates a lot of funds that they get from the federal allocation. They have the opportunity to also generate their own funds within their own space. Likewise for the state government. No matter how much they are fighting to get a quota of allocation to the state or the local government, if it's not effectively utilized, the strain will still be on the federal, right? They have to carry a lot of responsibility. And sometimes I tend to be very cautious and kind with words, because sometimes people tend to blackmail the federal government to do something that they needed to have done themselves in their own jurisdiction. And the federal government will come to do it because they see that the people belongs to the entirety of the nation. But indeed, in our constitution, there is provision for the state government to utilize the funds that it has gotten from the federal. Likewise, the local government. And that's why we must thank the president for taking the bold step to freeing the funds of the local government from some state governors, right? And in freeing these funds, the local government now must be accountable for what they'll be receiving, to the extent that it must equate with the budget.
So is it safe to say that some governors who are against this, most of the governors who are against this tax reform bills, are actually doing so out of anger, following the Supreme Court's, judgments, for local government autonomy, financial autonomy, and all of that? Could it be that they know the benefits, but because of that, they are angry as a result of that, saying that we do not support this tax reform bill? Or probably they do not have much information or maybe much knowledge and creativity.
I will not go along your trajectory of question to answer that. What I will say is out of lack of knowledge towards understanding these issues. You can have people that believe that, okay, the quota that I should get is not what is coming. But the question is, what you've gotten so far, how have you been able to utilize it to the benefit of your people, right? How have you been able to put placement on their needs, not misplacement, priorities, right? We've been talking about CNG gas and all, right? I would have expected by now all of the governors to have gotten their buses running on CNG. If you go to Europe, the reason why people can move from point A to point B is because of the fact that the government have invested massively in transportation, and they're putting their subsidy there to cushion the effect of high cost of movement of human and services, right? If you don't do that, we're going to be having imbalance in our local economy and all of these things. So what do you think that a governor that do not understand the intricacies of bringing down some parameters that will cushion the effect of good communal living, that will cascade the opportunities within your jurisdiction? You cannot give what you don't have, right? So the federal government is setting the policies, the federal government is creating the resources, is pushing it down to the state government, and now you have developed a law to make sure, working with the Supreme Court, right, to create that fiat for the local government to have their stream of funding, right? So it is left for them now to key in and put it at basic needs of people, transportation, education, health, security. By the time you do that, farmers can go back to farms, right? People can move from point A to point B without even knowing the cost of fuel, right? And if you want to go out of your way, then it means that you have to pay for luxury. But the basic things need to be met, and it must be met, must be done by structures of government to put it in place.
You said earlier on that some states, you cited an example of some states blackmailing the federal government. Some would also argue, countering that position, that could it be that the federal government brought it upon itself, especially in this ongoing arguments of decentralizing, power at the center, or giving states more power. But then, if you also look at it another way, there could also be the issue of why do states have that much power to blackmail the federal government in doing its bidding? And even now that the conversation is you as a state, you have what it takes, just look inward, and see how you can develop your state, win yourself off the influence of the federal government.
Well, the word blackmail in the context I've used it is to becloud the federal government, to make people see it that, look, they're not doing what is right? But again, the federal government have created an opportunity for us to discuss on this matter, right? To see how best that we can go. And I use that word because some people did not consult their constituency before coming with that informed decision or informed statement that my people do not want this particular way. So I use that word in that context because these people did not go to their constituencies. If they have gone there, let them show the evidences or the evidence that they have gone there to arrive that my geopolitical zone, my people does not want this. So that was why I used that statement in that particular context, that they are blackmailing the federal government along their statement, right? But the issue here is that there is a room for discussion, right? The federal government have told us that a lot of items have been taken off. So it's a win-win for all Nigerians, be it rich, be it low, and what have you. But the wins go more for the poor people, right? Because take, for instance, someone wants to buy some items, right, that ordinarily this tax would have, been hinged on, and it deprive them from doing that. It has been removed. A lot of medical consumables also have been removed. A lot of manufacturing items have been removed so that SMEs can have the ability to develop and all of this and keep some earning to themselves. But you still have the rich ones, the very powerful one with a lot of funds, are also wanting to be put at par, with the keke rider on the street, with the bus driver on the street, with the perishable item business man and woman on the street. That is not right. You're earning more, right? Why don't you put more for the development of your country in order to allow other people grow?
So some of those who have expressed support for this bill, include the labor union, leaders, and some of the executives, and some other policy analysts, as yours. For instance, the president of the TUC, Festus Osufo, saying that, well, it's quite good. He agrees 70, 80% or thereabouts, to the tax reform bills, but he pointed out some of the areas, which includes the 800,000 naira tax, that anyone who earns below 800,000 naira will be exempted. And also, if you look at the prevailing economic situation, 800,000 naira annually is not really, commensurate with what we see on the ground lately. So he's now pushing for, why don't they move it up to like 2 million naira or 2.5 million naira or thereabouts? Do you agree with him?
That is why the platform has been created for discussion. That is why the National Assembly is there to open the room, which they have done, to discuss on this matter. Some people will even be pushing for 20 million naira.
To be exempted from tax.
Yes, to be the benchmark of exemption. But again, it's about discussion. It's about you pushing your fact forward and proving it, that this is the reason why we are pushing this narrative and all of that. If you look at the developed climes, you see big multinational corporations. You see very wealthy people having charitable organizations, foundations, and all of that. That's where they push their earnings to in order to support government to push down poverty in their climb. If you go to Europe and America, you see it. They're even doing it in Africa. The Ford Foundation and many of these foundations are doing it, right? The Bill Gates Foundation.
Never earning some form of reprieve?
They can even batter it. That, look, if we are doing this much, right, to push down poverty, to bring a lot of people up the economic ladder, we also want to batter. I would expect that big corporation will be going to the National Assembly to discuss this matter. that, look, from our earning, from our gains, we want to bring 30% of our gains, right, to helping poor people through a foundation. So if we do this, for instance, in infrastructure, like Dangote have done on roads and what have you, do we have the opportunity to barter these things, to have tax waivers and all of these things? This should be part of the conversation than saying, oh, we don't want this, we don't want that. Then how do we grow? There are some countries in the Scandinavian world whereby they don't have the kind of natural resources that we have. But they live on taxation, right? And their tax brings a lot of development for them. You will see their ratio is very high, but it covers their health care, it covers their education and all of that. I was with a Switzerland, a Switzerland foreign envoy. We went to discuss issues of trade, because I'm a trade expert too. I have a partner that worked with the UKTI. We came together to work in our business and all of that. So we had an encounter with him, and I asked him, I said, what if somebody wants to come from another country to your country for education and all of that? And he said, well, they can have it very easy. The first thing is just to pay $500. And after $500, they have a provision for free education within their environment. And I was astonished. So who covers for those costs? And a lot of people don't know about this, right? I was in Denmark for the World Climate Change Conference, I think in 2010 or 2011. I saw their environment. I only know Denmark for milk production and what have you. I never saw anybody live on the street. I didn't see homeless people. They have a hostel for them at top of the building. I decided to go and see, and I slept in the hostel.
Yeah, but that's another ballgame, because some Nigerians will say...
What I'm trying to tell you is that much of fund that they generate is from their tax, and they see what their fund is doing for them.
Exactly the same question I want to ask. They say we've been paying tax, either directly or indirectly. There is always VAT on this or that, even consumer goods and all of that. So where are these tax monies or revenues? Where are they going? How is the government utilizing these funds to the betterment of the society? Because they will always point to road infrastructure, bad road infrastructure, several things that are not really in place for Nigerians to enjoy. Is more reason we're having people who are jackpying, so to speak, to other countries. So what do you think the government can do to boost the trust in governments in terms of tax utilization, what's it called, efficient taxation and the utilization of same?
Good enough that you have deepened the conversation. Now, I will take your statement of government now in this context. Government is the people. You now have the governed, the elected representative, and all of that. That's how I'm going to look at it now. Now, the government, the people, right, must monitor their elective representative. They must ask questions, right? The people that have been elected into office must be accountable. Civil society organization must be up and doing. The media is up and doing now. And I like the disruptor that is in that media equation now, social media, right? Anybody throws up something and people quickly want to respond to it, that, oh, we're not doing this, oh, we're doing right, and all of that. There must be civic engagement, citizen responsibility. Because a lot of people that you say are not doing well in government corridors are also from the society. We're not taking them from Mars or from Pluto. They live among us. So if you have a society where a lot of people do not care about the holistic development of their space, then the people living in that space must rise up to the occasion to demand for accountability.
There is room for that if we narrow it down back to the new tax regime that these bills are, envisaging. There is room for input from the people in terms of monitoring and
that is why the debate is there, right? If they call for debate in the National Assembly, they are not excluding anyone. The major thing is that you must avail yourself to be there, either as a singular entity or as a corporate entity, or as a civil society entity.
But how hopeful are you that this will not be a long-drawn battle, just as we saw with PIB, before it finally materialized after all this long, duration? How hopeful are you, really, that these public hearings will bring impact?
Especially with Senator, sorry to add to what you said, especially with Senator Ali Ndume saying It should linger for like 10 years, just like the PIB.
The PIB.
You know, so he's saying that it should linger for 10 years so they will have robust debates.
We even had an economist also say, perhaps if that is the one issue, though you've already said some of the northerners are coming around, but then there's also the argument that, okay, if that is the main contention, it can as well be withdrawn. And okay, let the government allow history to judge it, that yes, we had good intentions, but the people didn't have it. We might as well just withdraw it and move on.
You see, we must never lose hope. And I'll take your statement of hope down to pre-99, when we were in the military era, right? Some of us were student activists. And on the basis of hope, we kept on agitating for democracy, that we must fight to get back on track on our democratic system. We never lost hope. Some of our friends were killed, some were maimed, some people went on exile, but we did not lose hope. We kept on journeying, and we got it, right? Now we are in another phase of human development. We are not losing hope. We keep pushing, right? The more we push. But one good thing about democracy is about number, right? If we have preponderance of people pushing on a particular narrative that tends or that will develop the space of our economy and other development, then we'll get it done. So the fact that the federal government have brought a policy, if the people rise up to the occasion with good arguments that can convince everybody, because government about people. Indeed. Right? If we are all convinced that this is the best way to go, we hinge on it and we work well. But the major thing is that we must block leakages. Right. If you don't block leakages, no matter the amount of money you generate, it will still pilfer away. Right. So we must block leakages to increase our development, and education is key. And
in a bid for the true concept of the concept or the implementation of true federalism, how in sync is this new tax regime, especially now that payments will be centralized?
Well, we're moving there.
How?
We're moving there with this kind of tax regime. In the early 60s, in the First Republic, during the regional government, right? The regions were developing in accordance to what they're able to generate and all of that. The federal was only concentrated on little matters, right? Territorial protection and some of those kind of sundry matters. Now, with this kind of tax regime, if you look at it carefully, we're moving towards that line to making sure that what is generated, right, help you to grow. Now, if that is done, it means that all that sleeping hubs in some state will have to wake up in order to generate more, because they have the potential to generate far greater than what you have in Delta, than what you have in rivers and
the oil producing
the oil producing area that we think those are the the icing on the cake. There are so many icing all over the country. In tourism, we have natural mineral resources, but the greatest icing is the human being. If you can develop the human being very, very well, right, we'll be able to create wealth. If everybody can generate wealth, a lot of people will not remember about the structures of government because you are generating wealth. And I tell people, the most wealthy people in the world are not in government, but they benefit from government policies. Right. Look at Elon Musk now. Right, he has not been appointed or anything. Look at the stock. Look at the Tesla stock. Wait, I said before then.
Okay, before that.
Look at the Tesla stock. Went so high.
That's right.
Right, because of people that believe in him. Look at the cryptocurrency. Right. Going so high. All he has is knowledge. Right, even now that they have been appointed, as said by you, I have not followed their politics in recent number of days. But I think that again will limit his activity. Because if I were him, I would focus on my business.
No, his appointment has actually impacted on his own cryptocurrency, or what's it called, coin. That's the Dogecoin. When he was appointed, in fact, the title that he was given has an acronym for the coin he created in cryptocurrency.
Like I said, if I were him, I would focus on my business. Because whatever he does now, to aid his business in their own climb is tantamount to corruption.
We have to go now. We thank you very much, Mr. Ayodele Adewale, for your contributions on the program.
Thank you for having me.